get down to the semifinals. Hello and welcome. Best 3 out of 5 matches here in the semifinals. Luis Vargas has brought a mentor deck. What is he doing? He's It's a nice troll. It's a picture of the workshop's opening hand layered on top of Magic Online just to torment us.
You know, that hand is actually not that great because it has Soul Ring in the sense that it can get mental misstep. I'd much rather have that be a Mox. So if you were picking out your ideal opening 7, it would, the Soul Ring would not be there.
The graphic, though, I believe tells the truth here. It looks like Luis is on Mentor with Mystic Remora, which is can be a particularly powerful card, especially in a blue mirror. But Ephro's on Storm.
Yeah, it's not surprising at all. Ephro's got the good opening of Black Lotus into Necropotence, but not really because that's actually Lion's Eye Diamond and not Black Lotus. So
he's got Mox Defense Grid is what he's got. And yeah. Eric did know that he would be on the play for this matchup, by the way. Holy Mindbreak Trap, Batman. He just first turn Mindbreak Trapped Defense Grid. Wow, I didn't see that coming. That's insane.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty good, especially with a Flusterstorm to sort of back that up. The problem, though, is that, Ephro does have Necropotence, but nothing...
He's got no black mana.
Yeah, no black mana.
Claw Ritual.
Yeah, so he's just going to be biding his time for a few turns until he can draw a black source, and afterwards the skull's going to come down.
The Repeal, the signature card. Luis loves that cantrip more than anyone else on the planet.
Mm-hmm. Actually, Repeal isn't Luis's signature card. It's the second Repeal. The second report. I've certainly been one to give him a lot of
that's funny
criticism for playing that, but Repeals can be pretty sweet. And there you go. Eric has drawn up Polluted Delta, which is nice. So let him potentially play that Necropotence off of the Cabal Ritual. It just depends on what he wants to play around.
Right. He can't imagine this is likely to resolve, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's actually got a shot. Like, Luis has to Flusterstorm the Cabal Ritual? And then which Eric? No, he can't pay for it with Lion's Eye Diamond.
Yeah, Necropotence is so good that not even Flusterstorm can target it.
Right. And Eric is slow rolling his Sapphire because he clearly doesn't want to open up another Mindbreak Trap opportunity. So Cabal Ritual is the first spell of the turn. Necropotence is the second spell of the turn, and it's gonna resolve. Luis can't hardcast the Mindbreak Trap. He's one mana.
Actually, Luis can repeal.
Does that work?
Into Force of Will in response.
Well, here goes.
So what you might see is him. Oh, there we go. So yeah, so this is the one-time dealer. Like, where's my Force of Will? And nope,
not on top of the deck. Jeez, Eric's not playing that Mox Sapphire was super smart. Yeah, now Mindbreak Trap's alternate casting cost is turned on. Jeez.
Yeah, so if Luis were so inclined as to see down the line how integral that Mox Sapphire is going to be to the game plan, then you might have wanted to Mindbreak Trap that. However, that's very unlikely to be the case, and so Luis is just going to...
Yeah, he's going to open Eric. I mean, Luis is playing at this point, so Eric doesn't come up with a duress effect, doesn't come up with a defense grid, and that Mindbreak Trap can actually... A Mindbreak Trap and Flusterstorm, right? He's got 2 Storm counterspells, essentially.
Yeah.
Man, I wonder how confident their read was on this matchup. Because Eric is the higher seed, he got to choose play draw in this game. And because Eric knew he was the higher seed, he knew that match number 1 was one where he was guaranteed to get to be on the play in game 1. So I'm not surprised that he chose Storm as the deck he's running when he knows he gets to play first twice. But then Luis knows that Eric knows that. Or I don't know. Luis is claiming in chat that he didn't realize the higher seed got choice. Maybe he didn't know.
I suspect he knew. he might have been slightly aware.
Yeah, the Mind Break Trap on the defense grid. God, that was insane.
Yeah, it was pretty good. And Mind Break Trap is one of the cards that sort of helps these blue decks fight against all of the combo decks. But Defense Grid is one of those cards that sort of gets around Mind Break Trap. But unfortunately for Eric, he did not have a land to make it so that the Defense Grid was only the second spell.
Right.
And so we got to play some Fair Magic, which is sweet.
How good is this hand from Eric? He's necroed up a hand. He can go for it once and then reconsider. Oh, the Gitaxian Probe is actually huge here, isn't it? He is paying the 2 life. He wants all his mana, but he's going to get to see exactly what he needs to play around. Well, he might. Do you misstep this if you're Luis? I might misstep this. It's tough. Like, you're giving Eric so much information if you let him see your hand.
Yeah, you do leak a bit of value off of that. However, at this point, with facing down an Necropotence, I'd be more inclined to just use the misstep on something that's like more integral, like a Dark Ritual. I mean, sure that Eric is going to be able to use this Glasses of Urza to really formulate a good game plan. But at the same time, Mind Break Trap and Flusterstorm are great cards, and so that should make it difficult for Eric to be able to actually force through a winning line this turn. And so,
well, Eric does know what he's up against. I mean, is this Demonic Tutor for Defense Grid? And then Luis is going to Mind Break Trap the Defense Grid, probably. Then you've got a Mind's Desire. I think he may not have enough mana for all that, though.
Well, the problem is the Lion's Eye Diamond is off right now.
Right.
Eric would have to use Lion's Eye Diamond in response to the Demonic Tutor to be able to do that. So it's really going to be pretty tight on his mana. So he's got 4, 5, 6, 7 mana. Chain of Vapor is covered by the Mental Misstep, so that's not going to be able to generate any mana. For example.
Yeah. All right. Well, so Luis decides he's going to point Flusterstorm at the Demonic Tutor. Eric does not have the 3 to pay. He's clearly not willing to discard his hand just to resolve the Demonic Tutor. So he slogged his way through the Flusterstorm. Now what he has to worry about is the Mind Break Trap, and that's a problem. Yeah, he's just going to Necro up another hand and go for it next turn, hoping he can find either Defense Grid or Duress, or maybe be able to do something before with less than 3 spells.
Yeah,
Cabal Therapy.
Looking for a Duress or something like that.
Found Cabal Therapy.
Yeah. So Misstep is going to protect against Cabal Therapy here, depending on how Eric wants to sequence this. He can lead off with Chain of Vapor, and since he knows that Luis has the Misstep, I guess he's not. So yeah, Misstep's going to counter here, and Luis is down to very few resources.
Yeah, but Eric's down to 5 life. He's very close to Necro locked. He's got to resolve basically the Dark Petition, right? And
well, he's got Tendrils in his hand, so he can.
Yeah, but how much? He can't generate that much Storm. And his only source of a second black mana is the Lotus Petal. So with that hand, he can only cast 1 double black spell. Like the Wasteland and the Strip Mine are starting to add up. I think at this point, he has to just Necro for a couple more cards.
Yeah.
Go at it next turn.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that he can do is try to go for a Desire this turn. Just say, I know you have my Break Trap, but that doesn't matter, so I'm just going to play into a bunch of stuff. Or you can go for a Necro and then try and find another permission spell to get around the Mind Break Trap.
Yeah, to cast Mind's Desire, he would have to play his Mana Crypt, which means he's risking a coin flip next turn to lose the game when the Mind Break Trap counters all the Mind's Desire copies, which is what would happen. Like, he could effectively trade Mind's Desire for Mind Break Trap, but at the cost of putting his Mana Crypt into play.
Well, he can always just play it and then chain it back and not replay it again, depending on...
Not really. No, he didn't have the mana. It was he had exactly 6 mana if he cast the Mana Crypt. Like he would have to sack Petal and cast Mana Crypt and leave Mana Crypt in play to cast Mind's Desire this turn. I think I agree with Eric's decision not to do that.
Yeah, the problem with from this point of view is the defense grid is going to be isn't really going to be an out to mind break trap because Luis can just play a third land pass. And then
Fair.
still have enough mana to pay for the defense grid to cast alternate cost of Mind Break Trap. But we'll see. Eric's going to be neckering for, looks like 3 cards, I think?
Yeah, looks like Luis may have had a computer issue. Eric can actually cast Dark Petition as his first spell next turn, which can't be Mind Break Trapped. He could actually resolve Dark Petition and Yawgmoth's Will before playing 3 spells.
The problem with that, though, is Luis can play Landmarks and just hardcast Mind Break Trap.
Oh, then he's got 4. Yeah, okay. Yeah. The Emerald does give him the ability to have 4 mana, so... Well, but there's Duress.
Yep. So
this is going to be close.
It's going to be... He's got... The problem is that he's really tight on black mana. He's only got the Underground and Lotus Petal and Lion's Eye Diamond. And
oh my. Yeah, you're right.
The Lion's Eye Diamond with Necropotence in play is pretty bad, so what'll have to happen is Chain of Vapor is going to have to bounce the Necropotence if he intends to go with a...
is Eric just screwed by the fact that he only has 2 black sources? He can't cast Duress and then resolve Dark Petition with that hand. Right? I'm not missing something, am I? He just can't... He has the Duress he needs for the Mind Break Trap, and he can't cast it. I guess he has to Duress and then Mind's Desire is how he has to play this?
Yeah.
All right, well, he can chain the Mox Emerald, which turns off hard cast of Mind Break Trap. Is that what he's doing? No. What did he chain?
He chained Necropotence to give himself
he chained Necro. Got it.
Yeah.
Huh, and then the draw step was an Ancestral.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah. So he's got a lot of blue mana, which will let him basically cast Mind's Desire off of that Tolarian Academy for free, which is good for him. So now you're going to probably see Duress followed by Ancestral, followed by... Hopefully he'll find a Dark Ritual off of the Ancestral Recall and be able to cast it off of Black Lotus.
Yeah, this is all going to come down to whether Luis can Ancestral into black mana, is I think how this works. There's the Duress. So Eric tapped one of his 2 black sources. He's down to... I guess he can cast the Mind's Desire and he can cast the Ancestral. That Mind's Desire is going to save him. I'm obsessing over the black mana, but the Academy gives him enough blue that he's going to be able to Mind's Desire. And he found a Dark Ritual. All right. Yeah. Eric Froelich took, 3 or 4 turns of Necroing, and Luis almost fended it all off. But I do think Eric has got this now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's just going to go Ritual, Crypt, Petition for... Ritual, Crypt, Petition, Crack, Lion's Eye Diamond for Yawgmoth's Will, and then just go off from there. He doesn't have to worry about anything.
Yeah, he's seen Luis's hand. He knows there's nothing relevant. Eric, just a question of how does he want to go through a Mind's Desire, or does he just want to petition for Yawgmoth?
Just petition for Yawgmoth. I mean, he's got everything in his graveyard.
Yeah.
Luis is basically hellbent.
Wow, close game.
Yeah.
I thought
drawing the Dark Ritual off of the Ancestral was pretty crucial there.
You know, that Cabal Ritual, did Luis have the ability to Flusterstorm that and choose not to? I'm trying to remember. It felt like Eric was pinched on black mana the whole game. There was a point early after the Mind Break Trap on the defense grid where Eric finally drew a black mana and played that Cabal Ritual. I think if Luis had chosen to fight over the Cabal Ritual, Eric would not have been able to cast Necropotence.
Right. I mean, that's a tough spot, though.
It's totally a judgment call. I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm just saying, like, the psychic line would have been to fight that over that Cabal Ritual.
Yeah, I mean, it's Necropotence versus something like a Dark Petition, right? Because if you're casting Cabal Ritual there, what spell are you going to be trying to resolve?
Yeah, if Eric's going for a Dark Petition, which is actually more likely. Yeah, I think you're right. I think Luis's play is just correct. Because if it's a Dark Petition and you get to Flusterstorm the Dark Petition, you're so much better off And he's got, what, 4 Dark Petitions and only 1 Necropotence. So, I mean,
Still, I mean, you have
could have been a
to.
bargain maybe, but it wasn't a threshold. Yeah, it's so much more likely to be a Dark Petition than it is a Necro that Luis
Yeah, but
just
that doesn't
got.
necessarily matter either, just because it's like, sure, there's only one Necropotence, but if you're going to be losing to one card and you have a Mind Break Trap, which could cover the Dark Petition, then you might want to like more strongly consider countering the Cabal Ritual if you just can't deal with Necropotence. But at the same time, you could use, I mean, that's basically it.
Yeah, it's a tough judgment call. I mean, that's, in retrospect, that's the point where Eric won that game.
Yeah, it doesn't matter about the 4 versus 1. Like if you're going to lose to 1, then you should consider it a little bit more strongly. So,
all right, game 2, Luis on the play. They are playing as many as 5 matches against each other. So whoever wins this match, well, they're just a third of the way toward a spot in the finals across from David Ochoa.
yeah. And Luis's hand is reasonable. I mean, he's got Lotus, Misstep, Brainstorm, and Mystic Remora with a few lands. So, I mean, that is okay. He's got no business, but the Remora should buy enough time to draw into something. And
I think the turn 1 Remora on the play against Storm might just count as business.
Not necessarily. I mean, you can. The Storm player can just like play a defense grid, and then what do you do? It doesn't matter as much if they're drawing a bunch of cards. Like Remora is going to keep their lands tapped, so they're not going to be able to use any of the cards that they're drawing to counter any of the spells that you're playing.
Yeah, we should zoom in on Mr. Gamora. I don't know if everyone has had the chance to see this. Luis with the white bordered Arcane Laboratory. So cumulative upkeep. This card was initially printed in Ice Age. Whenever the opponent casts a non-creature, you get a card. I mean, unless they pay for it, which almost never happens. So Luis can just sit behind that, and now he's also managed to resolve an Arcane Laboratory, so only 1 spell per turn for Eric, and I cannot imagine Eric's deck has a lot of ways to deal with enchantments. 1 Chain of Vapor in hand. So I guess...
Luis has him covered with that Mental Misstep, so Eric's really going to have to formulate a good game plan.
Through Mystic Remora?
I mean, he needs multiple chains, that's basically it. So it's going to be a game of how many Mental Missteps and other permission spells are you going to be able to draw to counter my Chain of Vapors versus how many Chain of Vapors am I going to draw. And Luis has Eric covered.
Second Misstep.
Miles. So now all Luis has to do is just keep on drawing cards, and eventually he'll draw a Mentor and win. I don't expect Eric to be able to come back from this. I mean, just Arcalamp is too good. And Luis even has the Mind Break Trap to alternate cast if they get into a really complicated fight.
He lets the 1 Remora go. Tired of paying that cumulative upkeep, let's start over with a fresh one.
Oh, yeah. And he had the option of playing a Repeal.
Sure.
I guess he didn't want to.
I do suspect we'll see Repeal Mr. Remora at some point this game, which is kind of hilarious and awesome all at the same time. This is Gentleman's Vintage, I guess. Repeal my own Mystic Remora.
Yeah. I mean, Defense Grid and Mystic Remora are both kind of dirty cards, so I don't know how much of a gentleman's game this is.
Says the shops player.
Look, I'm just pointing. I'm the one who's commentating, all right? I can point out the facts. These guys are playing dirty. They may have set their own agreements, but they're by no means playing without slinging a little bit of mud here.
Is Repeal Eric's box, turns out, is the better play when there's a Mystic Remora on your side of the table.
Yeah.
That seemed pretty good.
Yeah, but fortunately for Eric, he's got 4 mana, so he can just start hard casting his...
Oh, it's time to pay for the Mystic Remora.
Yeah.
Pay 4, no card for you. Take
No
that. I
value
couldn't
too.
cast anything with those spells anyway because of the Arcane Lab. Somehow Mr. Kimura and Arcane Laboratory have anti-synergy.
Yeah, that wasteland was just a turn too late. So despite being down a mana source, Eric is still going to be able to pay for to keep on playing stuff. But all things aside, though, I don't really see how Eric's going to be able to get out of this. Just beside beyond like drawing Cabal therapies to and duresses to get rid of all of Luis's permission, followed by a chain of vapor. And
I
that
mean,
line is
he's got the chain and the duress. He's okay. Okay, now there's a force of will, so Luis is up to sort of 3 answers. But I mean, Eric is sitting on a grip full of cards. This game does not actually look over. I mean, for as
yeah,
devastating as Luis's permanents have been, he hasn't done anything other than lock up the game with that Arcane Lab. I mean, he's kind of all in on the Arcane Lab, and it's not impossible. Oh, wow. Uses a misstep on Soul Ring.
yeah. I didn't like that at all. I thought that was pretty bad. Just because it's basically going to be this game is going to devolve into oh wow
Oh, wow.
the second Arcane Lab to be able to gifts and given for Arcane Lab, Force of Will, Mental Misstep, something like that, because they're 2 different pictures. But this game,
It's not actually how that works, but okay.
yeah, this game
Look,
is
there's a limit to the
basically
number
going
of
to be
whiteboarded Arcane Labs one man can afford, right?
yeah, sure. I mean, it depends on the artwork. I mean, if you're a fan of Brian Snooty, he did draw Volcanic Island. But so it's basically is Luis going to draw a mentor before Eric draws enough duresses and therapies to strip Luis's hand? And if Eric can't draw the disruption, then Luis is going to win. And he
All right,
does.
Eric
Yeah.
is ready to cast a duress. He can duress and pay for the Remora. I mean, I think a lot of the reason Luis wanted to counter that Soul Ring was so that Eric wouldn't be able to pay for expensive spells. So I don't think that misstep was crazy. We can see the 2 chains in Eric's hand, but okay. Now, second misstep gets pointed at the duress. Eric does not get the information, but he has slogged his way through a misstep.
The expensive spells don't do anything though if Eric can't cast any like storm spells. Like it doesn't matter if he has
Oh,
Yawgmoth's Will in his hand if there's an Arcane Lab in play.
oh,
And
how about duress number 2? Duress number 2 seems kind of great here.
well, yeah. Now he's is
I
gonna
feel
be
like
able.
Eric's going to win this game. Am I insane?
No, I would not say that Eric is locking this game up just yet. I mean, he's got 2 chains.
Yeah. I mean, I'm saying he's
And
got it locked, but he does have 2 Chain of Vapors in his hand. He's resolving a duress, so he's got perfect information now. What do you take? Do you take the second Arcane Lab? Do you take the Force of Will? I think you take Force of Will.
no, you take either Mindbreak Trap or Arcane Lab. It doesn't really matter. Not before so well though. You want to take either a Permission Spell or an Arcane Lab because your Chain of Vapors are going to be bouncing Arcane Labs. So I guess in this sense, taking the Arcane Lab it helps ensure that you only need to resolve 1 chain as opposed
Right.
to if Luis's draws like all Arcane Labs for the rest of the game, then you're just your duresses are dead. So
Yeah.
you should take the Arcane Lab.
I mean, the thing is, if Luis lets this Remora go and plays a second Arcane Lab, Eric's life gets infinitely more difficult.
Yeah. He's going fishing with the Remora for something pretty big here. He's going to be paying 7 pretty soon.
All right. So now Eric is set up to chain Arcane Lab. Luis probably has to force a will to defend it, and then on the following turn, Eric may actually resolve the chain, or even
Yep.
untap resolve.
Yeah. I mean, once this Mystic Remora goes away, he doesn't want to give Luis a bunch of cards, yeah.
Wow. Eric's going to win. He's going to bounce Arcane Lab. Luis is going to force. Eric's going to untap, chain Arcane Lab, and go off.
If Eric, I might consider playing Demonic Tutor for another permission spell just to
You
ensure
just
that.
saw his hand. You know exactly what his 2 cards are.
Yeah, but you have a Yawgmoth's Will in hand. You have a Dark Ritual. The only thing that you're really going to be concerned with is just a lack of mana. In which case, Demonic Tutor translates to Lotus to make sure that your Yawgmoth's Will is going to be profitable enough. But at the same time, you don't want to give Luis a bunch of time to draw another permission spell.
Yeah, I
So
mean, so you're saying that if he can successfully bounce Arcane Lab, but the problem is he's then going off versus a Mystic Remora, and then Luis might draw into Force of Wills that way. That's your problem. That's your
yeah,
issue.
yeah. Well, like Force of Will and Mindbreak Trap, more Fletcher Storms. There's so many tools that can be had by Luis that I would want to have his hand covered and make it so that uh, you want the Remora gone, you want to be able to duress everything. I would not want it to start this plan with leaving a Remora in play because that's just a recipe for disaster.
I think you have the chance. I mean, it's so hard to get the Arcane Lab off the table with your deck. I like Eric's play. Chain gets the Force of Will. Now, if he chains Arcane Lab, he's now allowed to cast more spells.
Yeah.
Maybe he can get a defense grid before he does the rest of it. He's even got a Mindbreak Trap, though, to defend himself with. Yeah, this is just a question of the only thing Luis has going for him right now is the Mystic Remora.
Yeah. He's got Mystic
Eric
Remora.
said go. Wow.
Yeah,
Eric decided he wanted to say go. He's going to force Luis to either tap out to upkeep Mystic Remora or let it go. Luis let it go. Now Eric can use that second chain on end step, hoping that Luis's 1 card draw is not a counterspell. Luis let the Remora go so that any counterspell he drew off the top of his deck would be good enough to stop the chain that he suspects Ifro must have been setting up for. Yeah, it all came to down to that 1 draw step. Eric said, I'm going to give him 1 draw step so that I can not have to deal with Remora. And he faded it. Luis drew a Tundra.
Yeah, the plan was good. It's just that fighting against defense grid with, fighting against Arcane Lab is going to leave you vulnerable to the top of your deck, just because you can't go, oh, okay, I'm just going to duress you and clear a path because with Arcane Lab it's your 1 spell for the turn, so you would have to wait for their upkeep.
And Eric drew the duress. He got to see that Luis is holding a Tundra, and Luis is... What is this? This is DT for Black Lotus for Yogwell?
Yeah. This game is beyond over.
Yeah, it's just a question of how far Luis lets him go before he concedes. He'll concede to this Yogwell.
Well, the duress made it very easy just because Luis just F6 and do something a bit more productive. The duress is probably the best thing that Eric could have done. Luis breathe a sigh of relief.
Eric Froelich, ladies and gentlemen. Eric takes the 1-match lead, hangs the first W up on the scoreboard. That game, too, was remarkably well played by Eric. Luis sat on Mystic Remora. He then had refreshed Mystic Remora. He drew cards off all of Eric's Moxen until Eric could start paying for the Mystic Remora. That was amazing. And then at the end, Eric has Luis stripped down to absolutely nothing. And he's got a handful of gas. He's got like 5-6 spells in his hand. That was impressive.
Yeah, I mean, they're between Cabal Therapy and Defense Grid and Duress. The Storm deck just has a lot of tools to get around all of these tricky blue spells like Flusterstorm and Mindbreak Trap, Force of Will, etc. And it comes down to how much more consistently can one deck draw those assortment of cards versus the other. And it turned out to be Storm in this case. As Luis did not see a mentor at all, so he couldn't really apply any pressure, and that's what he really needed to do in the situation. Just because when you're going to be drawing a bunch of cards, then if you have to draw them in a more timely manner, then it's a bit of a taller order for one deck to do that, as opposed to not being under any pressure.
All right, we are going to take a quick break right now. These guys are going to get set up for their second match. Stay tuned. We still got plenty of vintage coming your way. We'll be right back.
With Hookah Trade, the world is your trade binder.